Okay, I gave you guys all a basic first aid sheet. This is just a down and dirty thing. You can keep it in, if Pat wants to, we could keep it, we can make copies and keep it in all of the first aid kits on the bus, just in case. But, and Nathaniel, please feel free to jump in. Nathaniel is an ER nurse, and so he deals with things from a completely different perspective as me. So the biggest thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that the scene is safe. If you don't have to move the injured child or person, that is the best option, and let EMS get there to do what they need to do. If there's broken bones, it's best if we not move them and let EMS splint them. But if the bus is on fire or they're in a dangerous situation, you have to move them. They can recover from a broken leg. They can, you know, there's lots of injuries that if you have to move them, we can still treat them afterwards. But if you don't have to move them, try not to. If the person is able to talk, find out about what their potential injuries are and call emergency personnel. A lot of times what I would encourage you to do is if you have multiple injuries, okay, have another child or another person spend time with the injured person, trying to get their mind off of it. We want to keep them calm, because they're going to be scared, their heart rate's going to be up, and if they are bleeding, that's going to cause them to bleed more. In many cases, they will also hyperventilate because they're scared. So a lot of times having somebody else talk to them to get their mind off of it is sometimes a really good thing. So stick another 1 or 2 kids, you know, by them. I'm focusing on kids because that's primarily what we drive. If you have a kid that has a head injury, it's very important that you try to keep them awake. Try to have somebody talk to them and keep them conscious the whole time. They may want to go to sleep, but try not to get them to do that. Try to keep stimulating them if you can. Squeeze their hand if you can, if they're not, you know, their arm's not injured. You know, tickle their toes. Do something to try and keep them stimulated until EMS can arrive. That's for head injury. If they have any type of a scalp laceration, or they have anything where you can see that they've had some trauma to their head, try to keep them awake as much as possible. If they become unconscious, the biggest thing then is to just make sure they're breathing and that they have a pulse. So try again, if you have multiple injuries, you're going to have to spread the wealth around. For the most injured children or adults, keep the adults with those kids, and then you can farm usually the other kids out to help their buddies. If you can, find out where it hurts, how much it hurts, sometimes on a scale of 1 to 10. How much does it hurt? 10 being the worst pain you've ever experienced. Kind of get a range there, just so that when EMS arrive, they're going to want to know who's the most injured, and you're going to have to direct them appropriately to the kids that you think have the greatest injuries. Now, I would guess, and I could be wrong, but if there is a school bus accident, probably multiple EMSs are going to come. So I would think you're going to have a couple of different ambulances that may show up, just because they don't know how many kids are going to be injured and how many they're going to be able to take in each ambulance. So I would have guessed that. And then, of course, your firemen and your police have all got some extra training too, more than what you guys have, so they'll be able to assist as well. Any questions about basic principles? All right, anaphylactic reactions might be one of the injuries that you may come up with that is not related to an accident. So a bee sting, a kid gets a hold of some peanuts that they're allergic to, things like that. What I wanted to show you is most kids that have severe allergies have EpiPens on board. Have you ever used an EpiPen?
In training.
Okay, good. That's all I was expecting you to do. You pop off the top, okay? It's got usually a little top to it. This is going to have a needle in it. And basically what you do is if the child has an EpiPen, and usually they're going to have trouble breathing. They're going to have what sounds like an asthma attack, okay? They also may be breaking out in hives or itching, saying that they're itching all over. But a lot of kids who have these allergies, they know when they're having a reaction. What you're going to do is through their jeans or through their clothing, you're going to slam it up against their leg, okay? You're going to hold it for the count of 10. So count it out loud, let the kid count it out to kind of help them calm down a little bit. Let it out, and then you're going to massage the spot. The needle's going to be covered, you don't need to worry about that, but you don't want to just lay this around. You also want to make sure that you note the time that you gave the epi. EMS is going to want to know that information, because if the child is not responding quick enough, they may need to give a second epi or a third epi. So, but these are EpiPens, and if you want to play around with that, I can go through that a little bit farther with you guys.
I might say it's important how you hold that. Don't get your thumb over one end of it.
No, don't do that.
You get the wrong end.
Yeah, give it to yourself. Yeah, that would not be good. So EpiPens, they're pretty standard. You know, you don't have to worry about dosing or anything like that, and it does go directly through the jeans. So you don't have to worry about that. The big thing is to massage the area. The massaging of the area helps spread the medication out to the body. So that's why you do want to massage the area. Okay. Some kids will carry 2 epis. I have a friend of mine, she needed a 3rd epi, and the 3rd epi was what saved her life. They lived out in the country. She somehow got exposed, she has a severe allergy, got exposed to peanuts, and she had 3 in her purse. And she used 2, was not feeling better. She used the 3rd on the way to, actually the EMS gave her the 3rd. She had 2, she had already taken 2, and then she needed a 3rd to get to the hospital. So some kids may have more than 1. It's okay to give the 2nd one if you need to. What would say your response, if they don't respond within
3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, 3 to 5. Yeah. 3 to 5 minutes, go ahead and use the 2nd epi if they happen to have 2 epis. So, okay, and always, if a kid gets an epi shot, they always need to be evaluated by a healthcare personnel. They don't just say, you know, they say, oh, I use an epi, I'll be fine, I'm just going to go home. I've talked to a couple people, let me know if you agree with that. But anytime an EpiPen is used, they need to be evaluated by healthcare personnel.
So we're calling 911 regardless.
You can call, I would say if they respond well, you can call the parent and let them know. I don't know that they need 911, but they need to go see their family doctor. They need to go to an urgent care. But yeah, somebody needs to be notified because they may have something called rebound. And so they may end up having a reaction 6 hours down the road or a couple hours down the road. So it's always a good idea, if an epi's been used, that they contact someone.
I think that for our procedures, if we have an incident on the bus where somebody has to use that, we stop the bus, call 911, and let the medical personnel do it.
Okay.
That is going to cover the school and us for any liability.
That's a good idea. Okay, so that's what we'll do. All right, any questions about epi, anaphylactic reactions, anything like that? There should be somebody on all school trips that have medical forms with them, so we should know of any kids that have severe allergies like that should have an EpiPen. So.
And I will say that I am allergic to bee stings, and I got one mowing and went into anaphylactic shock, had to go to the emergency room. Within 5 minutes, I had welts all over my body, and I got to the emergency room before I had any problem with breathing, but it happens awfully fast, so we need to react quickly if something like that were to happen.
Absolutely. And we have some kids here in the school that are highly allergic to peanuts. They don't have to eat them. They just have to touch anything that's got peanuts on them, and they can begin to have a reaction. So, yeah. So we've got some of those. All right. Bleeding. Always make sure that anytime you have, anytime you're coming in contact with any blood or body fluids, that you have gloves. So there should be gloves in the bus. Always put the gloves on. It's really to protect yourself from the bodily fluids. The biggest thing with bleeding is that you want to apply pressure. So if you have a child that's injured, you're going to want to apply pressure, put your gloves on, and grab some gauze pads. And you're going to just open these up, and you're going to apply 1 or 2, depending on how much it's bleeding, and just apply direct pressure to the area. If you need more, go ahead and just grab more, but you never take the initial one off. You just keep layering it up, okay, and applying pressure. And then when you feel like it's slowed enough that you can wrap it, gauze wrap it, then you would just wrap the area. The reason that you don't take this off, and my nursing students laugh at me all the time because I'm big about rationale. I feel like you have to understand what's going on to understand why you need to do what you do. And the reason you don't take this off is because your body is normally going to clot, and many times it will clot to the gauze. So if you pull this off, I've just removed the clotting mechanism and I'm going to increase the bleeding, and we're going to start from square one. Okay, so that's why you always want to do it. Just apply pressure, and then if you can, wrap it until they can seek additional medical assistance from that. Now, what if you have a child that has glass or some type of debris in a wound? So let's say you've had an accident and I've got a child that's got a piece of glass sticking out of their arm. You never remove that, okay? You leave it alone until EMS arrive. Many times, whatever's impaled in them is actually stopping the bleeding. And if you take that out, then if there's an artery that's been cut, you are going to be gushing blood. So the best thing to do is leave it alone, stabilize the area, keep it as clean as you can, meaning, you know, if you can, help nothing to be over top of that area. Just leave it alone, try to just support the child. They're going to probably be freaked out, but try to just wait till EMS arrive. EMS will probably leave it alone too, and they're not going to take it out until they get to the emergency room and they're in a controlled environment to where if it is an artery that's cut, they're going to be able to take care of that in surgery or something like that. So you don't remove anything that's impaled. Just leave it alone and let EMS take care of that. Okay. Yes.
Are you going to talk about nosebleeds?
Yes, that's down on my list. That's actually next after fainting. If someone becomes unconscious, that can be caused because of smells. Even if you're on a field trip and you're going somewhere and a smell just hits somebody the wrong way. You know, unfortunately, you know, we've got kids that may not have eaten well that day, or we've got kids that have different issues. If they faint, the best thing to do is if you can, help them not to hit the floor. A lot of times people that faint, they get injured from hitting the floor or falling and hitting a table or something like that. The actual fainting is not the problem, it's what they hit when they're on their way down. But if they can, just gently lay them to the floor and elevate their feet. Okay? What that's going to do is it's going to shunt the blood to the core part of the body and help get blood to the head. A lot of times people faint because there's been a decrease of blood supply to the head for whatever reason, and a lot of times it's anxiety induced, it's hyperventilating, things like that. So the best thing to do is if somebody's feeling dizzy or woozy is to get them into a floor lying position, or if you can, into a recline. If the child can, sit in a chair and put their head between their knees will sometimes help them too. But if you need to, basically get them to the floor. That way I don't have to worry about them falling anywhere, and raise their feet. Stay with them until the fainting spell passes, and they should wake up after that, and it should not be a problem.
So if we're driving along and they start yelling at us that somebody fainted in their seat, and we pull over and we do that, are we calling 911, or what could be the problem?
I think you would have to see what the history is, and that's when I would want to look at the medical form to see what's going on. There should be a teacher there that would be able to tell you that. Okay. And I would say between the teacher and the medical form, then to make that decision if that's something that we need to do. Okay. Absolutely. If it is heat related, the biggest thing you want to do is try to get them cool. So if they're on a hot bus and you know, they're really starting to feel faint, try to cool them off as much as possible. If it's a boy, take his shirt off. Take the shoes and socks off. We lose a tremendous amount of heat out of our feet. So it's, your feet and your head. So if they have a hat on, take the hat off. If they have shoes and socks on, take their shoes and socks on. But again, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to try and elevate their feet, get them up. Try and get people with something to blow on them, or not blow on them, but take papers and fan them to try and cool them off. If somebody has an ice water, that they might be able to use, not to douse them in the ice water, but maybe to put it on their shirt and then kind of wipe them to cool them down if you think it's a heat-related issue. If they can drink and they're starting to feel bad, then go ahead and try and get some cool water in them to give them to drink. But if they're unconscious, don't give them anything to drink so they can choke. Let's see, nosebleeds. We live through this on a regular basis with my daughter. Most of the time, a lot of people have been told the old wives' tale is you tilt your head back. That's actually the worst thing to do, because then the blood is going down your esophagus, it's going into your stomach. And so then that's setting you up for nausea and potentially throwing up. We don't want that. The best thing to do is apply pressure on the bridge of the nose. If you can, if you have some of these, grab some of these just to kind of help the flow of blood. The tissues will work fine. And if you guys are doing it, make sure you have gloves on. Okay? You're going to apply pressure to the nose, and you're actually going to have them lean forward a little bit so that any blood does come out. It doesn't pool in the back of the throat. And you just hold pressure until it slows. It will eventually slow. I don't know of anybody that's ever died, Nathaniel, let me know, of a nosebleed.
I mean, most of the time they're at risk is going to be your anticoagulated or
That's
that
true.
Sort of thing.
That's true.
Yeah,
Okay.
young people. I've
Not
never
our
seen that.
kids.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, most of the time not our kids. Sorry, yeah, I kind of forgot about the older. You're dealing with that different generation, yeah. Most of the time for our kids it's not going to be a problem unless they are on some specific medicine that prevents their blood from clotting, and they would be on that for another medical reason. But we should know that in the medical forms. So basically the biggest thing is just to hold pressure on it. My 9-year-old is excellent at managing her own nosebleeds. She had one in class the other day, the teacher wasn't sure what to do. And she's like, I know what to do now, you know. But if it continues, you know, to bleed, as you're applying pressure, you can also apply a cold pack or an ice pack, but you may not have that on the bus. But yes, you just apply pressure and tell them not to blow their nose. That is one of the biggest things they were going to want to do because there's going to be blood there. You want to wait a while before they blow their nose, because if you blow the nose, it's going to release the clot and we're going to start the bleeding all over again. So, but usually these are not, you know, dangerous. It's going to take 10, 15 minutes before the bleeding completely stops, and then they can go to the bathroom and clean themselves up if they're wherever they're going. And it's usually not a problem.
I might say that
yeah.
if they bleed and we've got blood on the floor, or they throw up, we've now got a biohazard. So we want other kids to stay away from that. And if you're going to clean it up when you get back, you need to wear gloves and a biohazard cleanup kit, which we have on the bus. Or we can just let Jonah or somebody clean it up, but keep kids away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any
You
questions?
do have that stuff that you sprinkle on it?
Kitty litters?
I don't know if that's in. I don't think that's in the kit.
Okay.
We don't clean it up while we're out?
No, well.
I mean, I'm just asking about...
I mean, it depends. If you're in Louisville and you need to come back, yeah, I probably would get that kit out and do what you can to clean it up. If it's going to be a problem, if it's in one seat, just keep people away from that seat.
Yeah.
If it's on the floor where they walk, you might want to do something with it, but just keep the kids away from it.
Do you have Clorox wipes on the buses?
I don't think so.
I would highly recommend that you just get a canister of Clorox wipes for every bus.
Okay.
That like takes care of a myriad of issues. That you would be able to do a quick cleanup with blood in the seats, on the floors. Just buy a big container of Clorox wipes.
Okay.
And then that can take care of lots of different things. That can take care of like vomit and all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
So, all right, seizures. Wow, the goal is to protect the individual. Sorry about that. That should be protect the individual. I didn't realize that.
No signs.
Yeah, no signs and all of that. And maintain their airway. We don't want to try and stop the seizure. So we do have kids that probably have seizures. They're going to be rare, but we probably will have some kids that do that. So the biggest thing is you don't try to stop it and you don't try to restrain them. They may be flailing. The biggest thing that you want to do is protect them. So if you can, if they fall in the middle of the bus and they're hitting like the armrests and stuff, what I would do is try to get people to stand there so they're getting hit instead of the child hitting metal or wood or something to injure themselves. But if you restrain them, that actually causes more injury potentially to the child.
So you don't want to try to get them off the bus when they have one?
Not when they're in the middle of the seizure.
Okay.
You really just kind of leave them alone and try and protect them. If it's one where kids have pillows, then throw pillows down around as much as possible. If they're throwing their head back, what I've been told is if you can get underneath of their head and let them hit your legs so they're not injuring themselves. But most of the time, they're probably going to be smaller seizures than that, but you may have a child that does that. So the biggest thing is to protect them. If they're sitting, you want to get them to the floor. Because many times after they have a seizure, they'll go into something called a post-ictal phase, which will look like they're sleeping. And they will. They'll just sleep for a while afterwards. It's the body's way to recover. And so you don't want them then, after they have the seizure, slumping to the floor and getting injured. So After, if they are sitting, try and see if you can get them to the floor as quickly as possible. Don't put anything in their mouth, okay? They may have bit their tongue, so they may have blood coming out of their mouth. Wait till their seizure is over, and then you're going to want to roll them on the side, because then if they do have blood, it can come out of their mouth instead of them swallowing it or pulling in the back of their throat. If they have any tight clothing on, again, you could cut it off or remove it if you can, if anything's possible. You want to protect them again from hitting anything hard or sharp. If they have a lot of saliva or blood in their mouth, turn their head. After the episode, turn them on their side, allow them to sleep, and just stay with them. Make sure they're breathing, make sure they have good respirations, and if they're having multiple seizures or seizures are lasting more than 5 minutes, call EMS. If you have a big seizure on the bus, absolutely just call 911. That is the best thing to do. They often will soil themselves, so they will urinate or they will also have a bowel movement. So the biggest thing to do is leave them on the bus, and if you can safely get the other kids off the bus and away from them, that would probably be the best situation. Just because it's extremely embarrassing for the child, and it will also allow EMS personnel to get there and get the child. I would not get the child off the bus. I would leave the child on the bus, just have people, adults stay with the child, and then get everybody else off the bus if you can, and have them sit until EMS arrives. Okay. There's really nothing that you can do for seizures except just protect the child from injuring themselves. Any questions about seizures? Okay. Shock. Shock is what the body goes into to try and protect itself, and it's usually from a loss of blood from a traumatic event. So you may see the blood, so it may be external. You may also not see the blood, it may be internal. But usually the signs and symptoms of shock are going to be, you're not going to be able to take their blood pressure. If you did have a blood pressure kit, it would probably be a low blood pressure, which means there's not enough blood volume, but you're going to have a high heart rate. So their pulse is going to be fast, and they may be breathing fast. So that's just the body's way to protect itself. So they may look weak or be really pale. They may be clammy. Their skin may be kind of cold and clammy. They may have some big pupils. They may be feeling anxious, disoriented. The best thing to do is just call 911, keep them flat. If they don't have any injuries that you can, like to their legs or anything, it's mostly upper body injuries, you can elevate their feet to, again, shunt the blood as much as possible to the core. Try to keep tight fitting clothing, get rid of those if you can. Keep them warm is one of the biggest things you can do. Because a lot of times they'll be cold. They'll say, I'm so cold, I'm so cold. So then that's when you want to try to cover them up as much as you can with blankets or coats or whatever to keep them comfortable. And then just stay with them. Again, try to talk to them, try to keep them awake as long as possible. Don't give them anything to eat or drink. And just call 911 and wait for EMS to arrive. And they'll be able to start IVs and get fluids in them and different things like that. Any questions on that? All right, simple fractures. Fractures are probably one of the things that you may or may not be able to tell if the child has a fracture or not. So if you do not have to move them, do not move them. That is the best case scenario. If it's a simple fracture, yeah, you can look at the arm and you're like, I know that's broke, but I've got to get them away from the bus because there's too many cars around. I'm afraid somebody's going to get hit. One of the best things that you can do, and I was looking for a soft-sided magazine. If anybody has a magazine or something that will fold, actually this is a pretty good one, that would fold, you can do something like this and split it, okay? And then allow them to just hold it. And if you have any gauze, you can kind of lightly wrap some gauze around. All it's doing is trying to keep the arm straight. That's all you're trying to do. You're not doing really anything else. It's just trying to keep it straight. So a simple fracture is one of those where you could probably tell it's broken. Maybe there's a hump or something, but the skin is not broken. And again, you just kind of want to don't move it if possible, split it with newspapers, magazines, secure it with tape, and just watch the skin below the injury. We want to make sure that we haven't compromised blood flow down here, where the injury is here, and distal, what we call distal to the injury. They may have swelling, pain, tenderness to the touch. Again, I don't know about you guys, I have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old, and they're right now in significant drama. So it's calming the child down, just keeping them calm, having one of their friends kind of talk to them, distract them, things like that. If you have an open fracture, did anybody watch the, I think it wasn't against UK, but it was a U of L player who broke his leg? Literally, it was a compound fracture, and it like stuck through the skin. I mean, his bone was like out through the skin. Those kinds of injuries, basically, again, don't move them if you don't have to. There's a lot of complications that can happen from that type of a fracture. But you definitely want to call EMS. If you're in a dangerous situation where you have to move them, try to stabilize that limb as much as possible. Get as many hands as you can around it to stabilize it while you move them to a safe environment. If they're bleeding a lot, you can apply pressure. If you can't apply pressure over the wound here, apply pressure up here, because this is going to decrease blood flow down to here. So you can apply pressure up here if you can't actually apply it down to wherever the fracture may be.
Tourniquet still approval type of thing?
I'm sorry?
Tourniquet type of stuff still?
I'm going to refer to Nathaniel on that one.
Unless it is life-threatening bleeding,
That's right.
you can lose the limb.
Yeah.
But
There's special...
yeah, like
Right.
profusely bleeding or life versus limb kind of scenario, but for a compound fracture, probably.
And that was one of the thoughts I was thinking of. Unless you've been specifically trained in how to apply a tourniquet and how often to release it and all of that, then it's probably better that you not apply a tourniquet, just because, like he said, if you cut off the blood supply for too long, you can lose the limb. So, because the tissue dies. So, it's one of those situations where, if at all possible, we try not to do that. I would think that you could put something around it a little bit, but not, like, you're not going to, like, cinch it way down, because that's going to be an issue. So it'd probably be best, if there's not that kind of bleeding, just to call EMS. They're pretty quick, unless you're out in rural Podunk, USA, where, you know, it's going to be a while, maybe 30 minutes before EMS can arrive to you. Okay. But don't attempt to set the bone or to move it back into place. If you need to splint it, just splint it in position. So if you have to move them, sometimes you just splint it the way that limb is. So if the arm's doing one of these numbers, you just splint it where it is, move the child to a safe area, and wait for EMS to arrive. I know you want to put it back into normal alignment, but don't do that. Let the EMS, and they will splint it in position. And then they'll wait till they get to the ER. Most likely, then the doc's going to take them into surgery, doing one of these numbers, and then once they get in surgery, then they'll take care of it and fix it. Okay. Is there anything that you guys have questions about that you've either come up, that it's happened on the bus, or something that you were like, I wasn't sure how to handle that, or is there anything that you guys can think of that I didn't touch?
Choking?
Choking, okay. If you have a child that is choking, what you want to do is, they're going to probably do one of these signs that they're choking, or somebody's going to yell. What you're going to do is you want to get behind them. You want to put your fist right around the umbilicus or the belly button, okay? Take your other hand and cover it, and you're actually going to go in and up. What you're doing is you're forcing the diaphragm up, and you're forcing air out of the lungs. When air is forced out of the lungs, many times it'll take the hot dog, the hard candy, whatever it is, and force it out. So you keep doing that as long as the child is conscious, and hopefully they're going to spit it out. I've seen it done successfully. Usually after a couple times it comes out. The kid is going to be scared, they may cry, all of that, but they're okay as long as they're breathing. If the child is coughing, let's say they've got something but they're coughing, you don't do anything for them. You let them just go ahead and try to clear it. They're getting air in because they're coughing. So it's best to allow them to clear it on their own. If they can't clear it on their own, you're going to know that, and then you're going to have to intervene because they're going to stop breathing. If they become unconscious, so you couldn't get the hot dog, the grape, whatever it is out, so they become unconscious, you lay them on the floor and you treat them just like a CPR victim. Now, if it's on the bus, well, you've pulled, somebody says so-and-so's choking, so you pull the bus over to the side, you're trying to do the the Heimlich maneuver on them, and they don't respond, and they go unconscious, if you can get the child off the bus, you're going to have much better room to do CPR, because that's basically what you're going to do at that point. Somebody's definitely calling 911, and you're going to do an assessment of the child. So you put the child on the ground, they're not breathing, you're going to start with 30 compressions. What you're doing with the compressions is you're actually also forcing air out of the lungs, so that's hopefully going to help get that hard candy or whatever up. The other thing that's happened is the child is unconscious now. Their body has relaxed, so a lot of their muscles have relaxed. In many ways, the muscles in their throat have relaxed, because when you can't breathe, you tense. So all the muscles are tight. So they're going to relax. So with you pushing on their chest, giving them 30 compressions, and them relaxing, we're hoping that whatever the object is, that it has moved to an area to where now you're going to be able to get a breath in. So you're going to do your 30 compressions. Then before you give your breaths, you're going to look in their mouth. If you see the hot dog, the grape, whatever it is, reach in and get it out. If you don't see it, don't go fishing, okay? We don't like fishing in this scenario. You don't do what they call blind finger sweep. Reach your finger in and try to get it out. So if you see it, get it out, then try to give 2 breaths. You don't see anything, go ahead and try to give 2 breaths. You may or may not get them in. If you got them in, great. The object's out of the way. It's gone somewhere, and you really don't care where. It's just gone. But if you get your breaths in, great. Just continue to do CPR until EMS arrives or the child, begins responding on their own. If you can't get a breath in, then you go right back to doing compressions, and then you just keep doing that cycle until EMS arrives. Okay. For choking. Anything else that you guys can think of that maybe you've come up against? Pat, who put your first aid kits together?
I don't know that. We've got several types.
Okay.
A few years back, we got some really big ones that have more stuff in it. The older buses have smaller kits with less stuff, but I don't think we've gone over them lately.
Okay. That might be something you might want to do, and because Cindy's a nurse, she would probably be a good one to look through them. If not, I can look through them and just see what. We also probably need to check and make sure there's nothing in there that's expired. So sometimes first aid kits will have aspirin or different things like that. We want to make sure nothing in there is expired. And if we do have medication in there, we probably need to take it out. So I can just say from experience, we borrowed my father-in-law's truck. He had a first aid kit. Our little 2-year-old got in it, didn't know it while we were loading some lumber in the back, and got into the aspirin that had probably been expired by 5 years. And so we were calling poison control, going, we're not sure. We think she only ate 1 or 2, but she's 2 years old, and they said she'll be fine. But, just, you don't think about that in first aid kit. There could be medication in there, so we probably need to pull that out.
Okay, we'll look into that.
I have a silly question.
Yes, no, there are no silly questions.
First aid kits. Do we store them outside in this cabinet all year round?
I have no idea. Pat,
Yeah.
where do you store the first aid kits?
They're in the outdoor cabinet,
It's not temperature controlled. Will that affect?
Depends on what's in there. It's probably not going to affect anything
Right.
like this and gloves, but if you've got a hot pack, cold pack, one of those ice cold packs that you break and use on a cold compress type injury.
I mean, we have to have a place to store them, and I understand that, but
Right.
as we're talking about that, I'm thinking if there's something that,
Right,
it gets to 5 degrees in January and it's 100 degrees in July.
right. I don't know.
We'll check it out. We can't leave stuff on the bus because they're not locked, they're not
Right.
in a fence, and people
Well-
steal stuff.
Is there any possibility we could leave them in the nurse's office here at school, and then when a bus driver comes in to sign in and get the keys and all that, they just run through the nurses, or in Jackie's office, they just grab a first aid kit and then head to the bus. And then when they turn their keys back in, they return it. I don't know how the system works.
We can. Not all of us sign in. Sometimes it's after hours we're getting the buses, so that won't work real well.
Okay.
But I'll have you or Cindy or somebody inventory those kits.
Okay.
And if we have to do something different, we will, and we'll let everybody know.
Where does the public school keep theirs? Do you know?
On the bus, but they're inside fences.
Same temperature. I mean, if it's,
That's true.
Well, that is true, yeah.
It's on the bus.
It's cold and hot, it's
on the bus,
same thing.
So So I mean, I would think whatever
All right.
is on there.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to open a can of worms. I'm just kind of
No.
thinking about it going,
Yeah.
if there were aspirin or something that would be affected temperature-wise. And I guess not, but
They don't, that's right, they're there in all kinds of weather.
all right.
Yeah.
Summer, winter, always on the bus.
Is there a CPR mask in that kit? You know?
I don't think so.
Ooh, we need to do that then. We need to get at least an adult and a child mask, at least, in each one of those kits,
Okay.
for sure.
I'll get with you after this.
Yeah, that's fine. And I would also recommend that you just buy a box of gloves and just have gloves there, because if you've got a situation where there's multiple injuries, you're going to need more than one pair of gloves. So I would recommend just grab a box of gloves and just throw a box of gloves in every bus. They're not expensive. They're, you know, a couple bucks. They're not bad at all. And that will also work for cleaning up any accidents that may happen or anything like that. So that would take care of that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I'm done.
Thanks so much, Beth.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate you coming in. All right, again, thank you all for coming. Public schools, you know, some of you that they require an 8-hour update every year. I'm giving you 4 hours today, and then the other 4 will be CPR update. Those that aren't here will be able to look at the video. Now we have, let's see, Melody's business. She had stuff going this morning, and Michael is doing soccer this morning for a tournament, so they couldn't make it. I have an agenda on there. What we're going to do now, we're going to talk about pre-trip inspections here in the classroom. We're going to go out and do one on the bus in the second part of this. We're going to do a couple reviews of railroads and bus evacuations and breakdowns. You know, buses never break down because they're brand new, but I think emergency procedures are probably the best thing we can do, because we don't deal with that. And if it does happen, we've got to know what to do. So we're working on that. Railroads are rather scary. We don't encounter them very often, so I want to review that. And then for the second half, the pre-trip inspection of the bus, and then a driver evaluation, I'm going to take you all out on the bus, and we're going to drive around and just go do an evaluation. I haven't done those for a while, so it's not a big deal, but I'll be looking for a few things, particularly hazard type areas like intersections. For instance, what does a green light mean to you as a bus driver or as a car driver?
Well, an intersection is caution, and they teach us to put our foot over the brake pedal as you go through the intersection.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for, because I'm thinking, oh, green light, I'm clear to go through there, I get the right of way, right? Like nobody's going to go through a red light. We had a parent killed, last year before, this intersection down here in Taylor Mill where the stoplight is. And so yeah, we've got to be careful about that, because that's just going to start away. How about today? Did anybody have any trouble driving into work today? Was there any hazards out there? Driving into school?
A little fog and then sunshine.
Fog. And sunshine. So, so fog. When we think of fog, what kind of precautions would you take on the bus?
Slow down, make sure your lights are on. Slow down, lights are on.
Okay, that's a big thing. About every third car when I'm driving in here did not have any lights on. And some of them were silver, so I'm driving along and there's pretty thick fog, and all of a sudden this car just appears right in front of me. No idea that it was coming. No lights. I flashed my lights and I looked in my mirror and I was like, they're oblivious to that. What if you're driving along and there's a solid fog bank? You can't see a thing. It's just solid in front of you. What are you going to do?
You move the speed safe enough that you can proceed without having a problem. If it takes 20 miles an hour in the 40-mile-an-hour zone, you got to do that.
It's solid.
I would put the flashers on the bus though, and the strobe's already on. But anything that indicates somebody behind you coming up is, what's that? And then we go slow enough that we can see far enough ahead without having a problem.
All right, that's very important. You all heard of chain reaction collisions where people just blindly drive 50 miles an hour into a fog bank. So it's all clear, but there's a solid fog bank. Like maybe you're coming down into a bridge over a river where you see this all the time in airplanes. You can see this fog bank that snakes around. It's all over the river. So if the bridge is down there, you may not be able to see. Or a whiteout we had in Cincinnati a few years ago, where chain reaction collision, people just drive right into that. So you're going to slow down. You can't see anything. Flashers on, maybe pull over the side of the road and wait rather than just drive into that. So yeah, there's some hazards that we got to be thinking about. being a little bit more careful on the bus. Then sun delays. You're driving right into the sun. Another thing now, if you're driving away from the sun, but it's behind you, the drivers coming at you are going to have their visors down, and they're not going to be able to see very well. So they may turn in front of you, things like that. I'm thinking of other hazardous places, and these are kind of things that I look for in our evaluation. Like we had Kent County killed somebody, I think 2 years ago, down there in 3L, coming underneath the bridge. They're by the gas station, and I think the lady was coming out of the pancake house, pulled right out in front of her, and hit her. Not the driver's fault, and I don't know any circumstances. I'm not putting any fault on the driver, but those kind of congested areas, we want to slow down. The speed limit's 45, but I don't think I'd do that, especially if I see people ready to come out, and cover your brake. Just being a little extra cautious. Speed limits are another thing. We never speed in the bus. No reason to. And I put a speed limit of 65 on our old buses, so we won't go over that. We've got to baby them a little bit. Try to make them last a little bit longer. You don't really be going 7 miles an hour. Anytime you want to slow down below the speed limit, you need to do it. You're a school bus. People expect you to be a little bit slower, and they might curse you out, but hey, you're a school bus, so don't worry about it. Alright, so I'll look for those in the driver evaluations. Let's get into look on your school bus update training sheet that I have there in your packet. I want to go over some things on pre-trip inspections I want to look for, and we're going to go out and look at our newer buses. Just give you a little bit of background. I've been spending quite a bit of time this summer researching. We needed a third bus, so I was able to, Kent County put some buses up for a sealed bid. I found one of them, 159 that's out there, that is better than the others rust-wise. It doesn't look that great, but the rust is the main problem in the wheel wells, and this one's not in too bad a shape. They said it was a runner, so we sent it out on a trip, and
I broke it.
So it's all your fault.
Sorry.
So we want to prevent this, drivers. Anyway, it had a frozen bearing. The bearing froze instantly, and when that froze, it spun the fan off, which damaged the radiator a little bit, and the shroud and stuff, so we had to maybe get it towed back. Would you like to, while we're talking about it, just explain to us what happened while you're on the road and what you did after it happened?
I'll come over this way. We were at, I had the volleyball
Why don't you come and just talk in front of the
Oh,
camera
so they
here?
can hear it too.
Yeah, that's
All
right.
We were at Augusta High School down off the AA highway, at a volleyball tournament. Came up the hill from Augusta, got to the AA. I heard something coming up the hill. I didn't think much about that. Okay, maybe I ran over something. Turned right on the AA and started coming north back towards school. The girls in the back said, something's burning. So I got to a spot where I could get over as far as I could, past the guardrail, over off, flashers on, the bus is on. I said, you all stay here for a minute. I grabbed I went back and opened the compartment of the bus, the motor, and there's the fan laying there. I'm like, that's probably not good. So I go back in, I shut the bus off, have the flashers on, I evacuate the bus. I tell the girls, and there were 2 or 3 coaches and girls. There's probably 12 people. Everybody go off the bus back behind over here, and they stood at the edge of the guardrail.
Stop for a second. Why did you evacuate?
Because the bus is broken down. I'm on the side of a highway, 55 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, whatever it is. Trucks are going up and down that road. I don't want anything to hit that bus, and it's getting to the point where it's dusk. It was light when we pulled over, but the sun was going down. I wanted them out of danger in case somebody swerved a little bit, didn't realize what was going on, and hits the bus.
So what are the situations where we want to evacuate? You're saying one of them is unsafe position. What would be another one?
Well, if they smell burning, then something could be smoldering.
Okay, so fire. You want to get off the bus in a fire. And the third one, we had an accident, and the bus is damaged. You don't know what you might want to go and get off the bus at that time. So, okay, so go on.
Well, because of the position, I chose to evacuate the bus, and I told everybody to go back behind the bus in case something hit it. Then the bus wouldn't be shoved into them on the side of the road. At which point I got on the phone and I started going through the manual, finding out who do I call. Because like when the flash was on, I pulled the triangles out and set them behind the bus.
Okay, while we're on that, would you demonstrate how we put a triangle together?
Yes, I did that. They kind of overlap each other.
Button on this side, right there, got it.
And then and then I set them back. So, and what is it, 50, 100, 150 feet? So it's kind of a triangle coming out the bus, so you get forced this way away from the back of the bus.
Depends on whether you're on a curve. We have a sheet on there, a sheet as far as where you place these triangles.
This was a straightaway.
Straightaway. Okay.
And they were coming down the hill and starting back up. They could see me from a half mile away.
10 feet in front, 10 feet behind, 100 feet.
10, 100, and 200.
It was all
100, 100, 200. Right. Okay.
Is it
So you got the
two-lane
kids.
road or
Huh?
is it a 2-lane road or?
2 lane at that point.
Oh, okay.
Makes a difference if it's a divided highway or two-lane road.
But I had the bus over as far as I could to the right without being off in the dirt and grass because I didn't know if it would get stuck.
Divided highway, they'd all go behind. Two-lane road, 100 ahead, 10 behind, and 100 behind. It's on your sheet there. All right. So you got them off in a safe position. You called for help. And
I started calling Mr. Deacons. I just went down the list to make phone calls of who from the school needs to know. Parents were all 10 minutes in front of us. Within 15 minutes of that first phone call, I'm the only one left in the bus. That was nice. Everybody at the school was so nice about it, though. Who was the athletic director? Jeremy?
Yep, Jeremy Leach.
And Mr. Deacons. I don't know his name.
Dr. Dickens.
Dr. Dickens, I apologize. They were both apologizing up and down. I said, look, we as drivers understand things are going to break down once in a while. It's not a big deal. And we figured out how to get it towed and got the bus back here. Get back at 11:30.
All right, thank you very much. That's the way to handle it. Appreciate that. Kind of a surprise factor when it does happen, but that's exactly what we need to do. That's why we go through the training. And so the biggest issue is we want to keep the kids safe. So we're always thinking about the kids first. What do we do for the kids? We got them off the bus. We called the parents. They picked them up. Got them home. Then we worried about the bus later. We had a breakdown down near Georgetown. Because the parking lot wouldn't restart, so I just left the bus there, went down and got it the next day. Not too worried about the bus, I'm worried about the kids. We do have an update there for your manual. It has the latest phone numbers on it. If I'm in town, which I am quite a bit, you can call me first if you want to, and I'll take care of calling out people to get the bus rescued and such. Dr. Dickens is a good one to call, so he's aware of what's going on. But I do most of the maintenance on the bus. I take them in for inspections. I'm pretty familiar with them, and I'm familiar with the mechanics. I pretty much know who we can get to fix the buses. Another thing I might mention about that is, Larry, were you the one that wrote up 47 with the brake handle? Okay, well, you gave me a call or a text on that, which I really appreciate. I was able to get it fixed yesterday. If you just fill out the slip, leave it on the bus. I don't know when this is going to be seen, so if there's a write-up, it's not going to get fixed. You either got to bring this into the office, and they'll call me, or better yet, you call me or leave me a text message if there's something on here that needs to be taken care of. Now these we keep for records, so it's not that important if it's in that night. What's important is that somebody knows about the problems on the bus, so we can get it fixed. I fix a number of things myself. If I can't do it, I have Jonah come out and work on it. We fixed the dash was loose, we got that fixed. I went and got a handle off 45, which we were scrapping. Put it on there and ordered a new part for it. I'm also getting the tail light because the one that's on there, we're able to fix it, but the wiring is pretty bad. So we can get it fixed. If I can't do it, I'll take it into Complete Auto, which does our work on it. So just keep us informed on that. Okay, so we kind of got into some other things there, but pre-trip inspections. First of all, state law requires those every trip, so don't be tempted to just, if you're running late, go out there, start the bus and leave. I might also remind you that mechanics only look at that bus every 3 months, and other people drive it, so it's to your advantage to look at that bus over pretty carefully. Check the fluids, oil and transmission fluid, and see everything that you can see on that bus, because you don't know who's been driving it. And as I say, a mechanic hasn't been looking at it all that often. Public schools get inspected every month. They drive theirs a whole lot more.
I just don't have the time to take all the buses in every month, so we compromised and we do it every 3 months, so I cycle the bus in each month. This year, I might back up just a little bit more, but over the summer I found the bus at Kenton County, and so we put our sealed bid in on that. And the day the bids closed, I found out that Boone County was putting some buses up on a public bid. And so I went over and looked at them, because the bus I got out there, it's kind of rusty, none of the bins work, and it's not the greatest bus, but it would be, I think it was a good runner, so I thought it would be a good third bus for us. So I go over in Boone County and look at the buses there, and one of them was in really good shape. All the bins worked, there's not that much rust, there is a little bit in the forward wheel wells, and it had almost a brand new engine. It was put in last year, 20,000 hours on it, and it was a good runner. The secretary out there happened to be the driver of it. So I was pretty sure that we were going to get a good bus, so I bid on that one, and we ended up winning the bid. And so that bus is in Kona Ice, where Tony Lamb has got some mechanics that looked over the engine, and a body guy that's fixing the rust on it, the forward wheel well. So when that thing comes out, we're going to have 4 buses this year. At the end of the year, we'll probably end up scrapping one of them. I don't think we really need to run 4, but we usually use 2 on a regular basis, and we have 1 spare. So that bus is the same as the one we have out there, which we're going to look at and drive today. It's a rear engine International, same year, 2001, and should run just the same, everything will be just the same on it. So you'll see that come on board. I'm thinking about it. I have keys for the one that's out there, so I'll give these to you today. This is 159. The other one's 168. That comes on board. I'll have keys there. In the office, you can pick one up. If you want to drive it, it'll be the same as what we have. Okay, so you have to do the pre-trip and fill this form out. I've got there's only 1 booklet left. I've got another crop of booklets at home I'll put out there. They're the same thing, only they have a picture of a school bus on it, so you can kind of circle where there's problems on the bus and then write it up at the bottom of what we usually do. So basically the same kind of forms. I'm finding that people aren't sweeping the bus after the trips or emptying the trash can that's on one of them. Or really, we should just have plastic bags and not trash cans. But please clean your bus up. Be respectful for the next driver. I'm finding that it'll be right at a half a tank. And if you're going out of town, you might want to. I always take it out with a full tank.
Which one's it?
40. Well, I don't know right now, but I'm finding buses with half tanks, and I'll fill them up when I look at them out there. So if you have time, please try to fill your bus up with this near a half a tank, so the next driver who's going out of town doesn't have to gas it. If you got 3/4 and you're going, over to Dixie or Scott or somewhere, so just don't take a bus out with less than half. By the way, I've got differences down here. One thing with 47, if that gauge gets to a half, it starts cycling and getting swirly, so you really don't know how much gas you have. So keep that thing as full as you can on 47. I don't know what's wrong with it.
It's been real full every time I take another. It's right on full, so I'm definitely thankful for that.
It really helps. Get your fire extinguisher first aid kit. We don't leave them on the bus because we've had, during the night, somebody will come out there and spray that fire extinguisher all over the bus, and it's a real mess to clean up. Or they'll steal a first aid kit and take stuff out of it.
Where are those stored? Today's my first day driving, so.
Oh, it is?
I didn't drive anything last year. So.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and you're going out today? Okay. Maybe what we'll do here is, why don't we go out and we can pre-trip the bus.
You driving to Louisville?
We'll just change things a little bit.
Are you going to Beth Haven?
No, it's Portland.
Portland, okay. Because
Portland.
Beth Haven, you got pulling the main entrance, you're going to be stuck. You got to go the road around before that and come around the back.
Portland's got several different schools down there. You know which one you're going to?
The address they gave me is right on the same road on the other side of Cabela's from the highway. So you go on to 265, bypass the very first exit, 32, that's 32.
Okay.
Going towards Louisville, about 2 miles.
That's the easiest one to find. So, man, I'm trying to think. There's plenty of room in the parking lot on that one. We should be okay. Which, by the way, when we do go to a school, I always am looking, before I go in anywhere, I'm looking for a place to park. It's away from other cars. I'm looking for a place I don't have to back up. We like to avoid backing up if at all possible anywhere. So even on our school grounds, particularly, there might be students around. Particularly, you got out here, we have a lot of kids going back and forth. We have to back in the parking spot. It's be the only place you back in. And so maneuver around so you just pull straight out. It's a lot better. All right, let's go on out there. We'll help you get set up. We'll do our pre-trip. We'll come back in, do a little bit more talking, and then we'll start driving. I want to get on the road by 10 o'clock. By the way, another thing. Do you ever pre-trip these things, or you just put them on the bus?
I do.
What are you looking for?
Make sure it's on the green and make sure the tag is, the inspector tag is proper, and then I make the pin.
Okay. And so if we had to use one of these things, tab should break, pull the pin out, and then how am I going to use this? What kind of fire can I use it on?
That you can use it all three times.
So any type of fire, A, B, and C, electrical, whatever. And where would I squirt it?
Base of the fire.
Base the fire, not the flames up here.
You read the instructions for the fires.
Here are the instructions. That's why you don't have time to read the instructions. We have had these inspected. There is a public school on the one off 159 that I don't think has this tag, so I got to check on that. But that's why I pre-trip it. But
Tag fell off of mine the other day, so I had to put it back on. So
just kind of
just be
inspect it
alert
too.
to that. Yeah.
The other thing is, when would I use it? If the first thing you're going to do if you got a fire on the bus is get your fire extinguisher on, fight the fire? No, what? That's right. Kids. So always keep in mind the kids are the biggest thing. I don't care if the bus burns up if we got all the kids off. I don't think I can get it hooked up, but I wanted to show you a picture of the bus and the Carrollton bus crash. Anybody know about that? It really is. There was a bus fire in Kentucky last year, rear-engine bus fire. You know how long it took for that bus to be consumed in fire? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And that bus was done for. Rear-engine fire. We've had some problems with rear-engine buses. That's why we do bus evacuation drills. The last 2 times I've simulated a fire in the back of the bus. This year we had a chain reaction collision. The front door was blocked because we ran in. So we pushed us into the car in front of us. The car in back of us ran into the bus. Started a fire back there. So where are you going to evacuate? Side door. And who are you going to evacuate first? Kids in the back. And we ran our drill floor. So I'm trying to do things that have actually happened out there. In this situation, 5 minutes, that bus is gone. So we had to get our kids off. The rigs take 2 minutes, so we had them off in less than 2 minutes. But you have to react quickly. We're going to go over that procedures in a bit. So let's go ahead and go on outside.
Can we just bring these papers here with us?
Yeah, leave them all here. We're going to come back in for a few more minutes. All right. All right. Just don't want to stop that. So, there.